Yeah. Sunday Schmooze with Rabb and the CEO, brought to you by Mitch Health System, the gold standard in singular.
Now, back to your hosts, Rabbi David Bigler and CEO Mitch.
Separating the facts from the fiction and the Baba Mises from the bottom line. You're listening to the Sunday Schmooze with the Rabbi and the CEO. Mitch Zachary is the CEO of Zachary Financial Consultants. I'm Rabbi David Bigler of Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens, where you'll find traditional Jewish values for contemporary Jews just like you. Learn about us online at facebook.com/Jewish Gardens or youtube.com/Jewish Gardens, where you'll find live interactive daily Torah study sessions to pick you up through this quarantine. Zachary Financial Consultants will provide you with financial guidance. We'll provide you with the spiritual support through this difficult time. Together, we are Schmooze Radio, and we provide for your soul and your wallet, right? How's that?
And I just want to thank all our listeners I think we're coming towards the end of this, or we're coming off a big incline. And I just want to tell our listeners, it sounds funny to think that putting on a mask and following social distancing is actually patriotic, but it's a consideration to your fellow Floridians, to your fellow neighbors. And I think we should all be proud of the sacrifices we've made. And hopefully it won't go on for too much longer. I know so many people that have this fever or cabin fever or whatever from being stuck inside. And everybody's like, enough already. But every day that you comply is showing kindness to your fellow neighbors.
It's a whole new world, and you heard about this prisoner who escaped last week from jail because he switched an ID with someone else. And as they were releasing that prisoner, he had a mask on his face, so they let him out. They didn't know what he looked like. I had a guy walking into the synagogue the other day, to drop something off. He walks in
like a surgical mask.
Yeah, he had a full mask on his face, right? And he says to me, I see from the other side of the room, I couldn't recognize him. There was
very hard to recognize.
There was sunglasses and a face mask. He says, "Hi, it's Rabb." So I said to him,
"I thought you only know it doesn't rob."
I said, "I thought you were gonna rob me or something." I wasn't sure. It really looked, scary. A guy walks in, I don't know who he is, sunglasses and a full face covering. It's the new reality, the new normal, and this is what's going on. But it's incumbent upon us. It's very important for us to remember who we are and not to forget to live during these times. And there's actually a Jewish holiday happening next week.
Before we get to that, I just want to say kudos to you. Thank you, Rabbi, for all the help that you've given to the needy people in our community. A lot of our listeners may not be aware, and I just want to thank the Rabbi for the help he's given to the people that couldn't even put food on the table, couldn't pay their rent. And the Rabbi's found some very, very generous donors who've agreed to help in special cases to members of our congregation and the community. And thank you, Rabbi, for all that.
It's truly a pleasure. We pulled together a Chabad task force to help people with guidance and counseling and assistance, with forbearance and all sorts of federal stimulus funding and logistical support. And if people need favors or need rides or need deliveries, we've got in our community providing for pretty much as many of the needs as we could gather, including financial assistance to people that are in need. And we're grateful to be able to have such a benevolent community that's able to be there for each other. We truly are mishpacha. We're together in the good times and together in the hard times as well. And that's what it's all about. I find that this kind of a crisis brings out the best in us, and it brings out the worst in us. And that's why I keep on telling people how important it is to always remember to be kind. To be kind. If on a normal day, you have no idea that on a normal day, every single person that you meet is fighting a battle that you know nothing about. Right? And if that's true on a normal day, how much more so right now? People are anxious about themselves, they're anxious about their loved ones, they're claustrophobic, they're nervous, they got problems, who knows who they're not getting along with on the home front together in their quarantine, all sorts of financial anxieties. Let us be kind to each other at these very difficult times. It's very, very critical. Definitely. But thank you for your kind words, Mitch. We are here talking on Schmooze Radio. If you just joined us, we're talking about the Jewish holiday that begins next week. I'm not talking about the Jewish holiday of Shavuos. That one is at the end of May. That is the 3,332nd anniversary. Is that how you say 3,332nd?
So,
Second. Is that how you say? Second. Is that how you say? Anniversary of
Second, yes.
3,332nd anniversary of the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, when God literally gave God's gift to mankind on Mount Sinai, gave it to humanity in the year 2448 since the creation of the world. That is what we're celebrating on Shavuos. But next week is a whole different Jewish holiday. Do you have any idea, Mitch?
Lag Baomer?
Yes! Look at you! Lag Baomer is probably the most famous, unheard of Jewish holiday.
Well, no. Don't say that, because
There's more famous,
listen,
unheard of holidays?
I used to look forward to that holiday very
Oh.
much when I was in Hebrew school. And it meant that we got to take a day off or half a day off from our regular school, so we could go in some park and play games and do stuff. So I used to look very forward to Lag Baomer.
Nice. You used to go out to the parks and you used to
Well,
play
I'm a
games.
city kid.
So do you have any idea what we're celebrating? Like why or what is Lag Baomer and what are we celebrating? And why do we go out to the parks?
Well, I believe it has something to do with Rabbi Akiva's followers
Correct.
who were killed,
Sort of.
died.
Okay. So yeah, let me explain. The period that we're in right now, because it's indirectly connected to that, indirectly. So, well, it is. You'll see in a moment. Basically, for the first 1,000 and some years after the Torah was given, the period between the Exodus from Egypt, Passover, and the receiving of the Torah on Mount Sinai was one of the most exciting times in the entire Jewish year, as we literally counted down the days to becoming the chosen people. Remember, when Moses confronts Pharaoh, speaking truth to power, he says to him, Shalach ami ve'ya'avduni, let my people go so that they may serve me. It's become the battle cry of many revolutions, but they conveniently dropped off the second part of the battle cry. Let my people go, period, full stop. The ending of the verse is, so that they may serve me. The purpose of the Exodus from Egypt was in order to become the chosen people, right? So here we are, God takes us out of Egypt with the specific intent of giving us the Torah on Mount Sinai. So once we come out of Egypt and we see how close we are, the first half of the prophecy was fulfilled. So now we know that we're so close to the fulfillment of the second part of the prophecy. We would count down the days to the receiving of the Torah, where, God chose me. Wow. He chose the Jewish nation to be the chosen people, light unto the nations, with the 613 commandments. He gave us his Torah, and that was the most exciting time until the period of time when the Romans ruled in the land of Israel 2,000 years ago. And then Rabbi Akiva rose to the heights of Jewish leadership. It was during the time of the Talmud. And Rabbi Akiva, for the first 40 years of his life, was a total ignoramus. He couldn't even read. The next 40 years of his life, he became a Torah. The next 40 years, he was a Torah scholar. And the final 40 years of his life, he lived until 120. He was a prolific Torah teacher. At one point, he reached 24,000 students. 24,000
That's
students.
without the internet.
Right, that was in-person teaching. No Zoom, no nothing, right? You had to actually show up.
You had to be there.
Right. And it's not like Facebook that you can just slip in
Right.
and slip out, right? You got to be there in the flesh, right? 24,000 students, and very, very sadly, it was in this period of time between Pesach and Shavuos that the students of Rabbi Akiva died. Between now and Lag Baomer.
How many?
Sorry, between
How many
Pesach.
died?
24,000 students over 33 days. What's the math?
That's
How
a
many?
huge number.
How many per day is that much?
That's a lot.
If I'm not mistaken, it
Over
works
how many
out.
days?
What?
Over how many days?
Over 33 days. 727 per day.
That's a lot of people per day. Not as much as coronavirus is killing.
Well, actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's very similar. It's very
hear about
similar
that.
to
How did they
coronavirus.
die?
If you think about it, Mitch, how many people died in America in coronavirus so far? Was it 70,000?
Well, yes, over 70,000.
In the past, what, 3
Well,
months?
our average is over 1,000.
It was like March, April, May, right?
Our average is over 1,000.
Oh, so you're saying about 1,000 a day? Because if I do it over 90 days, you work out to 777 a day.
I say our average would be about 1,000 a day.
So 1,000 a day. So if you think about it, what
Maybe
we're
a little more.
experiencing
Between 1,000 and 2,000.
So what we're experiencing right now with the plague of coronavirus that's killing, at least in the United States of America, you said between 1,000 to 2,000 people a day. But Mitch, whatever the number, let's say it's 1,000, right? 1,000 people a day that are dying. That is what happened 2,000 years ago, when the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died over a period of 33 days or 32 days. It works out to about 700 funerals per day. That's like a 9/11 every 3 days.
Yeah,
every 3 days, it's a 9/11, right?
What were they dying from?
So why were they dying? And that's what Lag Baomer is all about. Because Lag Baomer is the day that they stopped dying. It's the day that they actually stopped dying. Let's talk about why they did die, so we talk about why they stopped dying. It says that they died because they didn't adequately respect each other, which is very surprising. They didn't adequately respect
Hard to
each
imagine
other.
men studying to be Torah scholars were respectful to each other. That would seem to be against the Torah teaching.
You weren't talking about casual, failing students, right? Or social students.
Right.
You were talking about Rabbi Akiva's
Serious.
disciples. These were men of great stature. And yet they were not able to observe the mitzvah of honoring your fellow, which we read about in the portion in the Torah last week. That's the mitzvah of the week, is to honor your fellow like yourself. Not just that, but Rabbi Akiva's motto. The motto of Rabbi Akiva was always, love your fellow like yourself. This is a basic fundamental principle in the entire Torah. So here he is, their own teacher was teaching how important the honoring of your fellow is. So why would they not be respecting each other? Now, the reason was that it wasn't despite. It was not despite their teachers promoting the value of loving your fellow. It was because of their teachers promoting the value of loving your fellow. That's why they couldn't respect each other. See, they were very excited about sharing the love. You see, if you and I listen to a lecture, what are the odds that we're both going to interpret it in exactly the same way? Zero, right? I'll say, well, this is what he meant, and you'll say, no, that's what he meant. And if we're normal people, we'll probably say, okay, we'll agree to disagree. Have a nice day. See you later, right? But the students of Rabbi Akiva were so committed to honoring each other like themselves, they said, no, I cannot let you go before you understand the proper way, which is my way.
Oh, really? Wonder why they would be like that.
Because they were somewhat spiritually immature in the sense that they weren't tolerant of each other. They felt it was my way or the highway.
Right, but they have to die for that?
But it was driven.
That seems a little extreme.
Yeah, it is a little extreme. We'll talk about that in a moment. But let's talk about what they were doing wrong, right? So the fact that they were not...
Rabbi Akiva just stood up and said, guys, listen, be more respectful to each other.
They obviously weren't getting that message.
I mean, you've always told me that, especially in studying the Talmud and the Torah, that you can have multiple opinions in our Jewish history is surrounded by rabbis saying one thing and scholars arguing. I mean, the whole Talmud really is about rabbis disagreeing. Very learned.
Right, respectfully disagreeing.
Right.
But these guys could not respectfully disagree with each other. They felt that they had to impose their personal view upon the other. Meanwhile, the other guy's trying to impose his view on me. So while I'm trying to force feed my view upon him, he's doing exactly the same thing upon me. And basically, they broke down with an inability to experience love of your fellow Jew. Which is, by the way, the reason why now more than ever, we're supposed in this period of the year to experience kindness and thoughtfulness and gestures of random kindness to each other through this specific time. We're now supposed to be more sensitive of not falling into disagreements. We're supposed to make peace at this time of year in repair of their mistake. So basically, here's what happened. They died because they didn't adequately respect each other. Why was that worthy of death? Probably because God held them to a higher standard. that they should have known better. Somebody that doesn't know anything, God judges him a little less strictly than somebody that really should have known better, right? But on Lag Baomer was the day that they actually stopped dying. And it's in celebration of that we celebrate the festivities of Lag Baomer, at least initially. So what initially started out as a very joyous time, the countdown to Shavuos, became a very sad time of semi-mourning, which is the mourning of the loss of the students of Rabbi Akiva. And that's the reason we don't get married during these days. You're not supposed to have weddings, and you're not supposed to cut your hair during this time of the year. Interesting, right?
Well, I think many of us are observing that anyway, right?
Yeah, no haircuts, right? We're not doing any haircuts.
And no weddings either.
Oh, yes, of course. But isn't it interesting to think of the correlation of what happened back then and what's happening today, that you had almost 1,000 funerals every day during this period of time, as well as now that's what's happening, 1,000 funerals, 700 funerals a day, at least in this United States of America, where people are dying so much because of this plague, right? Mm-hmm. But the Lag Baomer really took off a few years later when after all of the students died. I'm curious to know, how would you react, Mitch, if all your life's work investment, you started off an ignoramus until the age of 40, it's Rabbi Akiva, right? He then spends the next 40 years of his life pursuing the Torah. Then, when he reaches the height of his career, he's got 24,000 students. They all die. How would you feel about that? How would you deal with that?
Me? I'd lose faith. I would just lose faith. I can't even imagine the grief. Having to go to 700 funerals a day? I mean, I would be overcome.
It's unthinkable.
Right.
You'd obviously say that God hates me.
I would think I got it wrong. I would think I was doing something wrong.
Right. Either God doesn't exist, or if he does exist, then it's not a kind of God that I want to deal with anyway, so I'm out of here.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
You'd probably check out, right?
Yeah.
Right. I think
Definitely.
that's a very honest reflection there, right? Yet what does Rabbi Akiva do? The moment he finishes his final funeral, he gets up and he inspires 5 new students.
Who weren't afraid to die.
These 5 students were the ones that carried the torch of Torah to the next generation. The most famous amongst them was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Did I ever take you to his grave in the north of Israel, in Miron, on a mountain in Miron?
Yes. Yes.
Very, very holy place.
Yeah.
His yahrzeit, I was trying to share with our listeners in a moment what you remember from there. But his yahrzeit is on Lag Baomer. So years later, he passed away on the Lag Baomer. Lag Baomer means the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer, of this countdown between Passover and Shavuos. He passed away on Lag, which is 33 of Omer of the counting. And when he passed away, his legacy shone. The day of a person's yahrzeit. And the reason that we Jews make such a big deal out of a person's yahrzeit is because all of their life's achievement comes to be expressed on the day of the yahrzeit. And we'll talk about that in a few moments, because I want to break this up into bite-sized pieces here. But basically, because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was the one that revealed the Kabbalah to the world, that's why we celebrate Lag Baomer on the day of his passing. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But for right now, I wanted to say that that Rabbi Akiva's students that passed away didn't break his spirit. He still had the courage to shake the dust off his pants, to rise from the shiva, and immediately proceed to teach more students. How is that for tenacity and faith? A message for us as we ponder the first day after quarantine. When we emerge from this quarantine, we're going to be a lot like Rabbi Akiva. We'll look at the world around us, and we'll find the world without Hertz Rent-A-Car. I don't know if they're still in business. And without many of the companies that we've learned to know and love, Who knows which airlines and which hotels will still be in business? Who knows which restaurants and which small businesses will still be in business? Who knows which of our friends will still be alive when we come out of this hurricane? And when we emerge from the quarantine, we'll be like Rabbi Akiva, rising from the ashes, from the 700 funerals per day, from the loss of his entire legacy and everything that he built.
Well, first of all, it's a very inspirational story. Certainly, I guess there are a lot of similarities. Sudden death, mass sudden death, definitely can leave you uninspired. I mean, the fact that he rose above it shows his unbreakable faith, which I don't know many people that have ever lived that could have exhibited that kind of unbreakable faith.
Mitch, that's exactly what we're celebrating in Lag Baomer. That degree of unbreakable faith. That's what we're celebrating, and that's why we made a yontif out of it. The sages made a holiday out of it because they knew that we needed an event to celebrate our unbreakable faith, no matter what kind of storm passes over us. We needed a role model like Rabbi Akiva. It's not for nothing that he's one of the most celebrated Jewish people who ever lived. Despite his humble origins, his ancestors were famous anti-Semites. He was a convert. We need that courage now this year in 2020 more than ever. And the providence of the timing that the quarantine is being lifted right around Lag Baomer. We still don't know when the quarantine is going to be lifted in Palm Beach County, right? Do we have any clue?
No.
But I know the rest of the state has had the different phases of lifting, right? But we're talking about soon, and this event is happening next week on Monday night and Tuesday. That's Lag Baomer. That is when the plague ceased. And when the plague ceased, how will you emerge? What kind of person will you be when you come out of the quarantine?
Well, I think we're all changed. We're all changed. You know, there's events that happen in some people's lives. The shooting, JFK, 9/11, where you go, you remember where you were, not where you were that day, of course, but there's the way you were before the event and the way you were after the event. And there's some events that happen that just change you. And clearly, this is going to change us in so many different ways.
Did the coronavirus...
We may never shake hands again.
Scary thoughts. Did the coronavirus strengthen your faith or decrease it?
I don't think it had any effect on me personally. I don't think it's affected my faith.
I think that a lot of Americans have become more sensitive to spirituality.
I should add that my lack of being able to go to shul on Shabbos tears away at me a little bit.
Yeah,
I've noticed social contact.
And a spiritual element to that too. There's something there which really gave you a lot of strength. Yeah. And I could see it.
Yeah.
I could feel
it's definitely weak.
There's a certain...
Because every week I looked forward to those 2-3 hours of peace, friendliness, happiness, socializing, hearing your Devar Torah. And you know, I'm the type, as soon as I walk into the show, I walk around, I say hello to everybody. To miss that gathering of spirituality and happiness and peacefulness, there's a hole in me from that. There's no question.
Yeah, I think
but it hasn't shaken my faith. I'm missing it. I'm really missing those 2-3 hours. All I have now is an hour with you once a week. What's
it gonna take to tell your clients to open a new business, to invest, to start investing in their ideas? Is this something which we're gonna have the courage to do, to start to rebuild a shaken world after the quarantine? Will we be able to do this?
Not right away.
That's the message of Rabbi Akiva. The lesson is, wherever you are, God is with you. You are never alone. You're constantly being tested. God is watching you and he's waiting to see your reaction. You're being tested. Where you are is where you need to be. Don't worry about yesterday. Don't worry about tomorrow. Right here and right now is all that there is. That's the power of now. It's being present in this moment, knowing that if God put me right here, then this is what I need to be using to the fullest of my potential. And that's my message for us as we emerge from this quarantine ever so slowly, like a turtle peering out of its shell, making sure that it's safe enough to get out. Let's be inspired by Rabbi Akiva and his courage to be able to venture out to a broken and devastated world and to rebuild his entire life's work from scratch all over again. And indeed, he was wildly successful.
I mean, I think we can all learn from that.
We'll be right back right after this with more inspiration about a deeper insight on Lag and specific connection to the teachings of Kabbalah and to Chabad philosophy. With more right after this. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Can you connect? Connected? Good. Fantastic. Yeah.
I'm glad you related that to what's going on today.
Okay. Wow. Somebody just sent me an email that he's sending a significant contribution to that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
The discretionary fund. Very, very nice. Very nice. Okay, we are still on YouTube and Facebook. Let's see what's there. Should we just carry straight on into it, Mitch?
Yeah.
I know we're all on tight schedules. Just check out the comments over here. Susan Pelosi, hi. Yoni Herman, South Africa. We want Mashiach now. That's from Stan Barrett. Yes, sir. Appreciation of what we don't have. Okay, we'll carry on in just a moment. Folks, don't go away. In fact, I think I'm going to sign off and sign back on. Yeah, I am. I'm going to do that. Folks, I'm going to sign off here, and I'm going to sign straight back on with our second segment. So thank you. We'll be right back with more. Don't go away.